This lecture discusses the endocrine system. Notice here that I have the word hormones. The endocrine system is really about how your body releases certain hormones and how they circulate. So what we're going to cover today is the endocrine system and how it relates to the nervous system and how it functions. So the endocrine system is considered the second great control system of the body. And we just studied the nervous system, so you might guess that the first great control system of the body is the nervous system. Endocrine, you might notice the word endo, which means in. So the endo part means in or internal, and the crine is for secretion. So we're talking about internal secretion. And what we're secreting are hormones. So if you think about it, hormones are always released or secreted into your body, never out to the body's surface. Now I mentioned that we're going to talk about the endocrine system in relation to the nervous system. So they're your two great body control systems. So we've already talked about the nervous system and how brain and behavior work together. But now we introduce hormones from the endocrine system, and we'll notice that hormones work with the brain and with your behavior, and they go back and forth both ways. So all three of these are going to interact. What we're going to cover in this lecture, in addition, is to review the endocrine system itself. Then we'll go into the glands, and we'll focus on some specific glands today. We won't be able to cover all of them. So the ones we're going to discuss are the pituitary, thyroid, parathyroid, adrenal gland, pineal gland, and pancreas. So let's take a look at the endocrine system and compare it to the nervous system, the two main body control systems. So the nervous system, you might remember, works with neurons, and those neurons send electrical impulses, and that's how the nervous system communicates, through the electrical impulses. Those impulses, like electricity traveling, is very fast. So the effects are very fast, and remember, it's through the axons where the impulses travel. The endocrine system, on the other hand, doesn't use electricity. Instead, it uses hormones, and the hormones are actually chemicals. So chemicals are used to transmit the information. Now, the chemicals travel in the bloodstream, which you can see right here is in a blood vessel. And therefore, the speed is a lot slower. So the effect of hormones will be slower because it goes through fluid. But the bottom line is they're both body control systems, and how they control the body is by communicating information. They just do it through different methods and different speeds. So let's look at the endocrine system. It includes glands, and the major role of the glands are to release the hormones into your internal fluids. For example, blood. So in this image, we have a picture of all the major glands. So every one of these glands will release hormones. The ones we're going to go through today are listed here. So after we do an overview of the endocrine system, we'll go one by one and look at those glands. Now, let's look a little bit more at the hormones that are released. So what are hormones? As we mentioned, hormones are chemicals. And these chemicals, remember, are secreted by the gland. And specifically, all of the glands we just saw in the previous slide are endocrine glands. So remember, endo means inside. So glands secrete, and endocrine glands will always secrete to the inside of the body. So example, all of these endocrine glands will secrete the hormones into the body, versus exocrine glands, which secrete outside. For instance, your sweat glands, your oil glands, those will all secrete substances to your body's surface. Hormones will regulate target cells in the body, so they'll go towards specific cells and have their effect on those specific cells. So let's look a little more in detail about these hormones. They come in two main classes. The first is amino-based. So here's an example of an amino-based hormone. You notice that it's actually made up of amino acids. So this actually is a protein. It's just a string of amino acids, for instance, glutamine, leucine, valine, alanine, and so on. So this is just a chain of amino acids, which makes a protein, and this particular protein happens to be a hormone. The second major class is steroids. Steroids are, remember, a type of lipid, right, a fat molecule. For example, this here is cortisol. The steroids have these 4 rings that you see, the 4 carbon rings, and additional groups hanging off of those 4 carbon rings. Cortisol is one of the hormones involved in stress, but also your reproductive hormones, like for instance estrogen in females and testosterone in males, those are steroid-based hormones. So notice the structure of a steroid is very different than a structure of an amino-based hormone. Regardless of whether the hormone is amino or steroid-based, all hormones have a basic action, meaning they go through a basic pathway. So let's review that pathway. So first you have the endocrine gland, such as, for example, the thyroid gland, right? And the gland will always secrete a hormone. That hormone goes into your blood, right, the fluid of blood, travels throughout the body, and then it hits a target cell. When it reaches the target cell, it will produce a response. So let's use an actual concrete example of this. Let's take an endocrine gland in the male reproductive system. So let's look actually at the testes down here. So the testes is a gland because it secretes a hormone. So you might be thinking, okay, well the testes in the male, what would they secrete? The hormone they secrete would be testosterone. So testosterone gets secreted by the testes and released into the blood. So now the testosterone is flowing through your blood. Once the testosterone goes through the blood, it's going to hit a target cell. For example, let's think of some of the effects testosterone might have on a man. For instance, testosterone in a man might cause facial hair growth. So the target cell would be, for instance, the hair follicles in the face causing the hair to grow. And the actual response would be the growth of the hair. Another important thing to look at for hormone secretion is how is it controlled? Right? When do you know to release the hormone or not? So there's actually 3 main ways that we can control hormone secretion. One is through humoral. Humoral means blood. So for example, molecules in the blood would actually regulate whether you need more hormones or not. For instance, molecules in the blood can regulate or say, hey, do we have too much testosterone or too little testosterone? Next, we have neural control. So in this case, the impulses from the neuron, for instance, the action potential that are communicating, one of the things they could communicate is to tell you to release more hormones or to stop releasing the hormone. And lastly, hormones themselves can regulate the control and release of other hormones. For instance, hormones being released by this gland will go, for instance, down to the thyroid gland and tell the thyroid gland to release more or less hormones. So hormones can regulate other hormones. So just to summarize so far, we know the endocrine system is a major body control system that communicates differently from the nervous system. It involves endocrine glands, which secrete hormones, which come in either amino acid or steroid structures, and those hormones regulate target cells. And finally, hormone secretion is regulated by humoral, neural, and hormonal stimuli.